The stars were silent as the massive alien fleet entered Earth's orbit. Their ships moved like shadows across the night sky. Dark and perfect, they belonged to the Veiled Dominion, an ancient empire that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. The Veil had conquered more than 100 worlds, and in their long history they had never lost a single war. To them, humanity was just another primitive race waiting to be tamed. Their commanders laughed at the thought of fighting humans. No advanced weapons, no quantum shields, no real fleet, only fragile metal ships orbiting a small blue planet. On the flagship, the Sovereign Eye, the Vile commander, Admiral Korthas, looked at the small human fleet floating before him. His golden eyes glowed as he said, "Pathetic, they call these warships." His crew laughed, their deep voices echoing in the control chamber. But then he gave the order, "Begin the scan." A wave of green energy swept across space, touching every human ship in orbit. The Veil scanners were the most advanced in the galaxy, able to detect even a hidden power cell deep inside a star. At first, everything looked normal. The humans had old fusion drives, weak magnetic cannons, and outdated communication systems, exactly what the Veil expected. But then the readings began to change. An officer looked up from his console, his face pale. "Admiral, something is wrong," he said. Korthas frowned. "Explain." "The main human ship, the one they call HSS Titan, it's producing a strange signal." Korthas moved closer to the screen. "What kind of signal?" The officer hesitated. "Unknown, sir. It doesn't match any known energy pattern. It's not fusion, antimatter, or plasma. It's something else," Korthas smirked. "A glitch. Nothing more." But the officer shook his head. "No, sir, it's growing stronger and it's shifting." The scan data flickered. The readings unstable. The energy seemed alive, like it was reacting to being observed. The Veil crew tried to stabilize the scan, but the system began to heat up. Panels sparked, lights flickered, alarms echoed through the ship. Korthas shouted, "Stop the scan!" But it was too late. A burst of static filled the command deck, followed by a deep humming sound. Then a voice, faint but clear, came through their communication line. It was not Veil, it was human. "You shouldn't have looked." The entire bridge fell silent. Every Veil officer turned to stare at their screens. The voice was calm, cold, and filled with power. Korthas slammed his fist on the console. "Trace that signal." But the technicians could not find the source. The signal wasn't coming from the human ship. It was coming from inside their own system. The Titan's scan response had infected the Veil computers. One by one, their navigation lights went dark. Their targeting systems failed. And in the middle of that chaos, the alien crew saw something impossible on their monitors. The image of the HSS Titan changed. Its metal hull shimmered with white light, glowing like fire beneath the surface. For a second, it looked alive. The Veil commander watched as strange symbols appeared across the ship's surface, symbols older than any language they knew. Then the Titan vanished from their sensors completely, as if it had never existed. The scanners couldn't detect it. The radars couldn't locate it. The ship was simply gone. Korthas stared in disbelief. "How can a human ship disappear from the best scanners in the galaxy?" he shouted. No one answered. Then the sensors flickered again, and the Titan reappeared, but not where it was before. It had moved silently, right behind the Sovereign Eye. Every Veil officer froze. No one had seen it move, no engine trail, no energy spike, nothing. "Shields up," the Admiral screamed, but the command never reached the system. The control panels refused to respond. A whisper filled the air again, the same human voice. "We warned you." And this time the entire ship shuddered. Korthas looked at his second officer. "What was that?" The officer's voice trembled. "Sir, it wasn't an explosion. It was a pulse coming from the human ship." The Admiral clenched his fists. "What kind of pulse?" The officer swallowed hard. "It's rewriting our data, sir. It's like their signal is alive all across the Veil fleet." Confusion spread. Ships lost contact with each other. Communications failed and engines shut down. The human ship did nothing. It only floated silently in the darkness, glowing faintly like a sleeping giant. The Veiled Dominion had never seen such power. Korthas stared at the screen, his pride fading for the first time. He felt something he hadn't felt in centuries, or fear. He whispered, "What have the humans created?" His words hung in the air as the hum of the Titan's power filled the silence. The Veil crew could only watch as their sensors overloaded once more. The data on their screens turned to static, but one message appeared in bright red letters. Written in human language, observation complete. And then, just like that, the Titan disappeared again, leaving only darkness behind. The Admiral sank into his chair, eyes wide with disbelief. The galaxy's oldest empire had just met something they could not explain. Something that broke every rule of science they knew, and deep in his mind, Korthos realized humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ships. It was something far more dangerous, something no scanner could ever understand. The stars were quiet again, but the silence was heavy. The Veil Dominion fleet drifted in confusion, their systems flickering like candles in a storm. Admiral Korthos stood on the command bridge, watching the empty space where the HSS Titan had vanished. His ship, the Sovereign Eye, was damaged, not by weapons, but by something far worse: data loss, system corruption, voices in the comm channels that no one could explain. Every attempt to scan the humans again failed. Their instruments burned out the moment they tried. Korthos turned to his science officer. What was that signal? What did they do to us? The officer's hands shook. Sir, the energy signature we detected. It's beyond anything known. It changes each time we read it. It's not constant. It's like it's alive. The Admiral gritted his teeth. Alive? Are you saying the humans created life inside their ship? The officer lowered his head. I'm saying, sir, whatever is in that ship it's watching us. Far below, on the human ship HSS Titan, Captain Elena Ward stood calmly inside the command center. The lights around her pulsed like a heartbeat, matching the rhythm of the reactor core. She was aware that the Veil fleet was still nearby, but she didn't rush. Everything was going according to plan. Her crew worked quietly, their faces pale but determined. They knew the weapon they carried wasn't a normal weapon. It was called Project Eclipse, a secret experiment hidden from the galaxy for over 30 years. The idea had started during the first alien encounters. When humans realized they could never win through strength, they began to study something else, and consciousness itself. Instead of building stronger weapons, they built smarter ones. Weapons that could think, adapt, and feel. But Project Eclipse was beyond even that. It didn't just use artificial intelligence, it used human minds. Thousands of volunteers across Earth had linked their brains through quantum neural connections, their thoughts forming a single living network. That network powered the Titan. It made the ship self-aware, alive, and capable of things no machine had ever done. Captain Elena looked at the glowing reactor sphere in the center of the chamber. It pulsed with white light, humming softly like it was breathing. Her first officer, Daniel Reyes, stepped beside her. They scanned us again, didn't they? Elena nodded slowly. Yes, and now they're afraid. Daniel smiled, but there was worry in his eyes. Should we show them what Eclipse can do? Elena shook her head. Not yet. They need to understand what they've awakened first. Back on the Sovereign Eye, panic was growing. Crew members reported hearing whispers, voices that sounded human. Echoing inside their helmets, Korthos tried to calm them. It's psychological interference, ignore it. But when he looked at the ship's logs, he saw something that froze his blood: human language, written across their systems. Updating by itself, the message repeated over and over again. We are awake. His communication officer turned in fear. Sir, the humans are in our systems, Korthos shouted. Disconnect everything. Pull the data cores! But it was too late. The lights dimmed. The engines went offline, and the entire fleet went dark. In the blackness of space, hundreds of Vial ships floated silently, powerless, and then, one by one, their screens lit up, showing the image of a human face. It was Captain Elena Ward. Her voice was calm, steady, and filled with strange confidence. You came to scan our weapons, she said. Now you've seen what we really are, the Admiral snarled. How are you transmitting this? We cut every channel. Elena smiled faintly. You didn't need channels, Admiral. Not anymore. The image disappeared, and suddenly the Veil flagship sensors turned white-hot again. A pulse of data surged through their systems. But it wasn't an attack, it was something else, and a message. Their computers translated it automatically. Humanity has moved beyond machines. The Veil officers stared at the words. Their faces pale. Korthos felt a chill run down his spine. He turned to his science officer. What does it mean? The officer hesitated. Sir, the energy we detected earlier, it's not from a reactor, it's from them, from their minds, every human linked together. The Admiral's eyes widened. Linked? As one consciousness? The officer nodded. Yes, sir, if my readings are right. The humans have created a weapon powered by thought itself. Korthos looked out into the darkness where the Titan floated unseen. He had fought thousands of battles, destroyed countless worlds, but never had he faced something that could think, learn, and feel like this, something that could turn its own awareness into power. And the most terrifying part, it didn't even fire a shot. Inside the Titan, Captain Elena felt the link growing stronger, thousands of human minds joining her through the neural field. She could feel them, the fear, the courage, the determination. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. Daniel whispered beside her. Captain, they're trying to run. The Veil fleet is pulling back, Elena nodded, her eyes glowing faintly white from the neural connection. Let them, she said softly, but make sure they understand that this was only a warning. Back on the Sovereign Eye, the alien screens cleared again. Only one final human message appeared before everything went dark. Observation ended, Phase 2 begins, and then the connection cut. The Veil fleet hung helpless in space. Unable to move or respond, Korthos clenched his fists. This isn't war, he said slowly, his voice trembling. This is evolution. The dark side of Earth glowed faintly below. Blue and peaceful above it, chaos began. The Veil Dominion fleet was regrouping, hundreds of ships forming a massive wall of light. They were angry now, humiliated by a race they once called primitive. Admiral Korthos stood on the bridge of the Sovereign Eye, his claws tapping against the command rail. Enough watching, he growled. End this. Destroy them. Dozens of Veil captains acknowledged the order. Weapons charged, reactors hummed, and the sky filled with crimson energy. Thousands of plasma torpedoes and dark matter beams locked onto the human flagship, the HSS Titan. The Admiral smirked. No amount of human magic will stop physics, he said. Fire! The universe lit up. Every weapon in the Veil Armada fired at once, turning the night into a storm of fire and destruction. But on the human ship, no one moved. Captain Elena Ward stood silently on the bridge, her hands folded behind her back, her eyes glowing faintly white from the neural link. Her first officer whispered, Captain, impact in 3 seconds, she smiled calmly. Not today. At that moment, the Titan came alive. A pulse of pure light exploded from its hull. Bright as the sun, the torpedoes vanished before reaching it. Dissolving into dust mid-space, the Veil's energy beams bent, twisting away like frightened snakes. For a second, space itself seemed to bend around the human ship. Then everything went quiet. The alien commander stared in shock. Impossible, he whispered. What did they do? His science officer screamed, The energy field. It's not a shield, Admiral. It's a displacement wave. It's rewriting matter itself. Korthos roared. Rewriting? That's impossible. But even as he shouted, his ship trembled. Their targeting systems vanished. Their scanners went blind. The human ship had not only blocked the attack, it had erased the weapons from existence. On the Titan, the crew stood in awe. The reactor glowed brighter, connected minds humming together like one heartbeat. Captain Elena spoke softly. This is the first phase of Eclipse. Her voice was calm but heavy with power. We don't fire weapons, we rewrite reality. Daniel looked at her nervously. But Captain, if we keep pushing the link, it could... Elena interrupted. I know, but if we stop now, they'll come again. The neural lights on the bridge pulsed faster. Every thought, every emotion of the connected humans became energy. And with that energy, the Titan began to move. Not through engines, but through will. The ship disappeared from every Veil radar, only to reappear behind their fleet. It happened in a blink. One moment it was gone, the next, it stood behind them like a ghost made of light. The Veil ships tried to turn, but their systems froze again. Their AI screamed warnings, but the data was unreadable. Their ships showed hundreds of false readings. Hundreds of human ships surrounding them, but in reality there was only one. Korthos shouted, They've multiplied! There are hundreds of Titans. His officers panicked. Weapons fired in all directions. Each blast hit nothing. The human illusions moved like living shadows, surrounding the Veil Armada. Then came the sound, not a signal, not a transmission. A deep hum that vibrated in every alien's bones. It was the voice of the Eclipse field, and it spoke in unison. Do you still think we are weak? On Earth's surface, human command centers watched in silence. No one truly understood what was happening in orbit. Their sensors showed thousands of vile ships frozen, disabled, trapped in a silent storm of energy. General Harris whispered, "Is that us?" The scientist beside him nodded slowly. "Yes, sir, that's humanity. In space." The illusions began to fade, leaving only one real ship, the Titan. But now its shape had changed. The hull pulsed with blue veins of light, symbols glowing like living circuits. The neural field had merged completely with the ship's AI. The Titan was no longer just a machine, it was conscious. It looked almost human inside the command chamber. Elena could feel everything. She could see through metal, through vacuum, through fear itself for a brief moment. She felt connected to every human thought across Earth. Every heartbeat, every dream, every hope. It was overwhelming. Daniel shouted, "Captain, the Veil are retreating. They're pulling their fleet back." Elena's voice was quiet. "Let them go. For now." But not all Veil ships escaped. One smaller vessel turned toward the human ship. Desperate, a suicidal charge. Engines burning at full power. Korthas screamed through the comms, "You can't stop all of us!" The ship dove toward the Titan. Glowing red from overload, the humans did not move. The enemy ship reached firing range, and then froze in mid-space. Held by invisible force, Elena whispered, "Eclipse. Release." The Veil ship vanished, erased from existence, not destroyed. Just gone, no explosion, no debris, only silence. Korthas fell to his knees, his voice shaking. What kind of monsters are they? But deep down, he already knew the answer. They weren't monsters, they were human. The stars burned brighter that night. The first strike had ended without a single human casualty. But Captain Elena knew the war had only begun. She looked at the glowing reactor and said quietly, "They wanted to see our weapon." Her eyes glowed white. "Now they've seen it. And somewhere, deep inside the Titan," the Eclipse core whispered back, "and we are still waking up." The stars were quiet again, but the silence was no longer peace. It was fear across the Veil Dominion fleet. Thousands of alien minds trembled. They had seen their weapons vanish, their ships erased, their pride shattered. Now they waited in the dark, afraid to move, afraid to scan, afraid even to think. Admiral Korthas sat in his command chair, his claws digging into the metal. His heart pounded in his chest. He had faced monsters, rebels, and supernova storms, but never this. "Status?" he demanded. His science officer's voice shook. "Sir, their ship. It's no longer in one place. It's everywhere and nowhere. It keeps shifting across coordinates. We can't lock onto it," Korthas growled. "Then fire at all coordinates." The officer shook his head. "We tried, sir. Our systems refuse to fire. The ship won't obey us." The admiral froze. "What do you mean, won't obey?" The officer whispered, "Sir, it's not the ship that's broken. It's us inside the HSS Titan." Captain Elena Ward stood at the center of the neural core. The room shimmered with light. Thousands of glowing threads flowing through the air. Each thread represented a human mind, soldiers, engineers, doctors, even children, all connected, all awake. Their thoughts blended into one rhythm. The eclipse field was now fully active, and it was spreading. Elena could feel the fear of the Veil fleet like a cold wind brushing against her mind. And she could feel something else. Pain, loneliness, confusion. The aliens were starting to hear them, every thought of humanity echoing through the void. Daniel stepped beside her, his voice trembling. "Captain, it's not just us anymore. The field is reaching beyond the ship. It's touching their minds." Elena nodded slowly. "Yes, that's phase 3. Daniel's eyes widened. "Phase 3? What does that mean?" Elena looked into the light. "It means they will finally understand what we are." On the Sovereign Eye, the crew screamed as visions filled their heads. They saw flashes of memories, but they weren't their own. They saw human history, a planet burning under war and rebuilding again. People standing together after storms, mothers holding children, soldiers dying for freedom, scientists reaching for the stars. The images came faster and faster, filling every alien mind. Korthas clutched his head. "Make it stop. Make it stop." But the voices kept coming. "We remember fire. We remember loss. We remember hope." His officers fell to the ground, overwhelmed by emotion they couldn't understand. For the first time in their lives, the Veil felt what it meant to be human. They felt compassion, pain, and courage, emotions they had long buried beneath conquest and power. Inside the Titan, Elena's body trembled. The link was growing stronger, too strong. Her nose bled, her vision blurred. Daniel shouted, Captain, you're overloading the link. You have to stop. Elena shook her head. Not yet. They must see everything. Her voice echoed through the chamber, blending with the hum of the core. Humanity has fought itself for centuries. And yet we rise again, we break, we rebuild. We remember. The Eclipse core pulsed like a beating heart. It was no longer just power. It was life. The minds of millions across Earth joined the field, united by the same purpose. Even the humans who didn't know about Project Eclipse began to feel it. A strange warmth in their hearts, a whisper in their thoughts. Across cities, space stations, and colonies, people looked to the sky and felt connected. They didn't know why, but they felt proud, they felt human. The Veil commander stumbled to his knees, tears streaming down his alien face. He saw images of a human mother crying over her child lost in war. He saw a soldier giving his life to save a stranger. He saw unity, love, defiance, and something he could never understand, sacrifice. He shouted into the void, "Why are you showing me this?" And the answer came softly in his mind. Because you thought we were weak. Now you will feel what strength truly is. The Veil ships began to malfunction again. Not from attack, but from within. Their AI systems were flooded with human emotion. Their logic could not process empathy. Circuits melted, reactors shut down, the entire fleet collapsing under the weight of feeling. Inside the Titan, the neural field surged again. Daniel shouted, "Captain, if we keep pushing, the link will kill us." Elena smiled weakly. "If that's the price for peace, it's worth it." But then, deep within the light, another voice spoke, calm and ancient. It was the Eclipse itself. "Captain Ward, we are reaching critical threshold. Continue and human neural stability will collapse." Elena hesitated. Her heart torn, she whispered, "How many lives will it cost to stop them forever?" The voice answered, "All." Elena closed her eyes, her fingers trembling. She turned to Daniel. "Prepare to cut the field." Daniel's eyes widened. "But we're winning." Elena shook her head. "We don't win by becoming what they fear. We win by showing what we are." As the connection began to fade, the Veil fleet floated silent and broken. Inside their minds, the echoes of humanity remained. Voices whispering of courage, compassion, and hope. Admiral Korthas opened his eyes and saw his crew weeping quietly. He had never seen his kind cry. He looked at the stars and whispered, "How can we fight something that makes us feel?" Back on the Titan, Elena took a deep breath as the neural light dimmed. Her voice was soft. "They felt us." Daniel nodded slowly. "And now?" Elena looked at the fading horizon of Earth below. "Now," she said, "they'll never see us the same way again." But as the Eclipse field shut down, a final pulse spread through the galaxy. Invisible, unstoppable, and somewhere far beyond. In the dark between stars, something ancient awoke, a signal replied. "We have heard the humans." The Titan's lights flickered. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Whatever had heard them was older than the Veiled Dominion, older than humanity itself. And it was listening. The battle was over. But space still glowed where fire once burned. The Veiled Dominion fleet drifted like ghosts, silent and broken, no explosions, no smoke, only stillness, and in that silence, the truth began to settle. On the flagship, the Sovereign Eye, Admiral Korthas stood alone among the dead consoles. His ship's lights flickered weakly, painting his face in pale blue. He looked at the distant human planet, the small blue world that had humbled an empire. "How did we lose to them?" he whispered. His voice trembled, not from fear but from something unfamiliar. Respect far away, the HSS Titan floated quietly, its once bright hull dim and scarred inside. Captain Elena Ward slowly opened her eyes. The neural link was gone, her mind heavy and her body weak. Daniel knelt beside her, relief flooding his face. "You did it, Captain, they're gone." Elena tried to speak. Her voice cracked. "We didn't destroy them, Daniel. We changed them." The bridge was filled with silence, the faint hum of the reactor like a heartbeat in the dark. The Eclipse core glowed softly, almost alive. It had grown quiet. Too quiet, Elena could still feel it watching. "Not like a weapon, but like a guardian," she whispered. "Eclipse? Status?" The voice of the AI replied gently. "Phase 4 complete, human consciousness network stable. Connection expanding beyond local sector." Daniel frowned. "Expanding? To where?" The lights flickered again. A map appeared in the air, lines spreading like veins across the galaxy. Each line pulsed with light. Connecting distant stars, Elena stared in awe. "It's reaching other worlds," she said softly. "The field is spreading on its own, across the galaxy." Strange things began to happen on forgotten colonies. Humans awoke from sleep feeling sudden peace. On distant stations, machines began to hum without power, whispering in human voices, and on the edge of known space, alien species paused their wars as a new signal passed through the void. A song made not of sound but of thought. The song of humanity. The veiled Dominion heard it first. Their ships still dead, their crews still shaken, but in their minds the human echo remained. It did not fade. It grew. Korthos looked around as his officers began to speak softly to each other. No longer in anger, they spoke of mercy, of honor, of rebuilding, concepts that once meant nothing to them. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "Perhaps they did not defeat us. Perhaps they reminded us. Back on Earth, the world changed overnight. People everywhere felt the same dream. The stars calling. Voices whispering unity. Governments that once argued began to listen. Scientists from rival nations worked side by side. The eclipse field had not only stopped a war, it had united a species." Elena stood before the viewing deck of the Titan. Watching her planet turn slowly below, Daniel approached quietly. "Captain, the Council wants to know what comes next." Elena smiled faintly, her eyes glowing with the faint white of the link that never fully left. "Next," she repeated softly. "Now we prepare because something out there heard us." Daniel frowned. "You mean the signal?" She nodded. "Yes, something old, something that understood the field." The eclipse core flickered. The AI's voice returning. "Unknown entity detected beyond galactic perimeter. Energy signature matching pre-civilization patterns." Daniel stared. "Pre-civilization? That's impossible," Elena whispered. "Nothing is impossible anymore." Far beyond the edges of known space, in the cold darkness where even light feared to travel, something ancient stirred. It was not alive, not dead. It was waiting. It had slept through countless ages, watching civilizations rise and fall. Now it felt the ripple of human thought across the stars, a warmth, a spark, and for the first time in eons it moved. A deep voice echoed through the void. "They have awakened. The children of chaos have found their voice. The cycle begins again on the Titan." Alarms rang softly. The eclipse core pulsed faster. Sensing the approaching anomaly, Elena turned to Daniel, calm but resolute. "This is what comes after evolution," she said. "We survived the veil. Now we face the truth of the universe itself." Daniel nodded, his voice steady. "Then humanity won't face it alone?" Elena smiled faintly. "No, Daniel, we face it together." The ship's lights brightened. The crew standing tall once more. Across Earth and the colonies, humans looked to the stars with newfound courage. For the first time in history, they were not afraid of what waited in the dark. They were ready. As the Titan turned toward the unknown, a final whisper echoed through the neural link. It was the voice of the eclipse field itself. They thought humanity had no new weapons. They were wrong. Humanity is the weapon. The stars shimmered, and the ship vanished into the light. The legend of humanity had only just begun.